Good morning. The Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriation, and Housing is now called to order. For the record, today is Tuesday, June 8th. It is now 9:06. Our clock here is fast or slow. Notice for this budget hearing was disseminated via email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets. First public notice was issued on Friday, May 28th, followed by Thursday, June 3rd, and Friday, June 4th. The committee will hear and accept testimonies on Bill 55-36 on the fiscal year 2022 Appropriation Act as requested by the Governor relative to the Guam Fire Department, fiscal year 2022 budget request. I'd like to acknowledge the senators that have joined me today, my colleagues. We have the Vice Speaker, Senator Tina Rose Muñoz-Barnes. We have the Oversight Chair of the Fire Department, Senator Peter Terlai. We have Senator Amanda Shelton. We have Minority Leader Senator Chris Duenas, Senator Tony Ada, and Senator Tato Taidegui. My colleagues, the chief's on his way. I think there was a conflict on memos, but he is on his way. We'll just go ahead and read down the rules. Those testifying on behalf of Bill 55-36 relative to Guam Fire Department have been invited. As soon as the chief comes here, shows up, then we'll have him swear in, then we'll begin the testimony. We have Chief Manabusan here. Written testimony should be submitted to the committee. Please provide my legislative staff with your written testimony for photocopying. Testimonies may be read, and lengthy testimony should be summarized to about 5 minutes, but we'll allow the fire department folks to testify as much as they can to justify their budget. Those testifying will be allowed to present oral testimony. Once you're done, we would ask you all to remain in the room for question or for additional testimony. Question and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda, which is the budget, the fiscal year 2022 budget of the Guam Fire Department. Personal inference as to the character or the motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. Any violation of this general rule of conduct will result in removal from the budget hearing. Proper form and decorum shall be practiced by all present in the public hearing room for these proceedings. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and decorum may be restricted from providing oral testimony and will be removed from the room. When you speak, please make sure that the microphone is on and that you speak into the microphone. We will now take a quick recess until the arrival of the chief. I just wanted to make sure that we started on time. So we have the MIS go ahead and put recess on the screen. Thank you. Okay, here we are. We have the chief online. Thank you, Chief Stone. We apologize for any of the miscommunication, but you're here. That's what matters.
Yes, sir.
We're going to
Yes,
talk
sir.
about your budget. I noticed that you've got quite a few slides you wanted to present, so that's great. But before we begin any of your testimony, we'll ask the Sergeant at Arms to please swear you in. Oh, the whole panel.
Please rise and raise your right hand. Under penalty of perjury, you all affirm that the testimony that you'll be providing today, whether it be in writing, verbally, or electronically, be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Mr. Chair, you're under oath. You may proceed.
Thank you, Sergeant at Arms. Chief Stone, I'd ask you before you begin your testimony to please introduce every one of your staff. And I advise all your staff that before they begin speaking with the mic to please identify themselves again one time, and then that'll be it for the rest of the hearing.
Very
All right,
good.
Chief?
Very good, Senator. Senator, thank you very much. I'll start to my immediate right. No stranger to the legislature. I have Assistant Chief Mike Nkanko, who is actually my administration and administration chief, who also handles our communication and, most importantly, our budget. To my immediate left is Assistant Chief Joey Manabusan, who's currently assigned as our training and staff bureau chief. And to his immediate left is Assistant Chief Darren Burrier, who is my operations chief.
All right, Chief, go ahead. And you've got some slides that you wanted to present.
Yes, sir.
We have the MIS folks. Go ahead and turn them on, and you can go ahead and begin your testimony.
All right, and I see our slides are ready. All right, thank you. Buenas noches, Senator San Agustin and members of the Committee on General Government Operations, Appropriations, and Housing. Thank you for this opportunity to present Guam Fire Department's fiscal year 2022 proposed budget. A little bit closer. It's up to you. Okay. Before presenting to you GFD's FY22 request, I would like to provide you with the backdrop of my testimony through overviews of our directions, challenges, highlights, and accomplishments that should bring you an understanding of the professional services that the Guam Fire Department, its administrative and support staff, and our emergency medical dispatchers provide to our island community. My guidance continues to remain that we meet our mission mandates, ensure that our staff is led, trained, equipped, and paid, as well as increasing our efficiency and capabilities with decreasing expenditures. Finally, to seek revenue enhancement through cost recovery and eligible grants. The mission of the Guam Fire Department is to mitigate threats of life, property, and the environment through education, prevention, and effective response to fire, medical, and environmental emergencies. The Guam Fire Department is mandated to provide the overall fire protection, fire prevention, fire suppression, and extinguishment, and the protection of life and property connected therewith, requiring a comprehensive administration of emergency medical services program to include a wildland firefighting capability for the territory of Guam. The Guam Fire Department provides for and administers an extensive program of fire prevention inspections, public fire safety education and training, international fire code enforcement, fire investigations, and reviews of plans for new and existing building construction. Additionally, GFD operates and manages an enhanced emergency 911 communications center and a wide land and open water sea and rescue program. With the Homeland Security and War on Terrorism initiatives, the Guam Fire Department continues to provide a comprehensive hazardous materials response team and advanced life support program, as well as a rapid intervention team. We accomplish our missions by promoting safety and maintaining a well-equipped, highly trained and motivated force of professional firefighters, EMT, rescue personnel, and emergency medical dispatchers, and promoting fire prevention and other public safety education programs. Our goals and objectives: maintain timely, effective, and quality medical response to all calls for assistance to the island community, which will be accomplished by maintaining the mandated requirement that all firefighters be emergency medical technicians. Continue and develop our training program so that all firefighters acquire National Registered Emergency Medical Technician certification and Fire Service Pro Board certification as fire service professionals to any type of emergencies. We are also in development of a comprehensive professional development training curriculum that will provide the most current and updated leadership and management fire service training to be attended by our fire officers and chief officers. Continue to train those firefighters to display interest in attaining EMT advanced certifications so as to provide much-needed relief to our current ALS personnel who have tirelessly stayed in the program, even sacrificing other career opportunities to keep the program viable. Ensuring the successful completion of GFD's first EMT paramedic program, which we're very proud of. Growing the current emergency medical dispatcher APCO certification requirements by adding the emergency medical responder certification for our 911 personnel. Continue our public safety education and life safety programs aimed at the youth within our communities that bring awareness and education that could potentially assist our youth in recognizing the need or call for medical or fire services. Grow the self-inspection program for qualified small businesses in the community to meet the demands of our fire code inspections. Continue our smoke detector, public safety education, and life safety programs, and implement a confident testing program for fire protection systems. Host continued discussions with our first response partners to hold a multi-agency response exercise with both local and federal partners to enhance relationships as well as enhance our overall ability to respond to any crisis. Continue to train and equip our emergency hazardous materials response team and work closely with the Guam Environmental Protection Agency and the Office of Homeland Security, Office of Civil Defense to equip against any type of hazardous situation that may present or pose a threat to the island and its community. Continue the procurement and purchase of much-needed emergency response vehicles and equipment to replace an aging fleet. Acquire a maintenance facility for the GFD maintenance and repair section. Replace our legacy E911 system with the next generation 911 system. We are very close to finalizing this acquisition that will put the most modern technology and equipment in the hands of our professional emergency medical dispatchers so they can provide an even more effective call and dispatching service to our responders and the community. This system will also include a management information system that will monitor all types of suppression, EMS rescue, fire prevention, and investigation responses, and will provide valuable statistics. Increase public safety community outreach programs in an effort to educate our communities regarding fire safety while fostering stronger community relations within our villages and our business communities. Continue to pursue financial avenues or partnerships to build a GFD headquarters, GFD training facility, and the next-gen 911 call center. These goals and objectives continue to be experienced by ongoing challenges such as retirements, extended military deployments, and medical profiles. Despite these challenges, we remain a department that is task purpose-driven and mission-focused. However, these absences within our department will continue to challenge our ability to meet our NFPA OSHA standards, specifically the 2-in, 2-out rule, primarily in our first-line supervisory positions. These gaps largely reside in our Operations Bureau, where the loss of institutional knowledge and experience within the first line and middle management supervisory positions are noticeably felt. In line with the Governor and Lieutenant Governor's commitment to our island safety, we continue to work with the administration to address promotions and hiring for additional firefighters. Because of our attrition rate, we are challenged with reducing the need for overtime expenditures while still being able to provide the necessary service to save lives and protect property at the level of service the community has come to expect and deserves. Since FY 2017 to present, 72 personnel have either retired, resigned, or separated from the Guam Fire Department. During the same period, 2018 to be exact, we have hired 45 fire recruits. This equals to a net loss of 27 personnel. Because of this, we anticipate continuous increase in overtime expenditures to meet the operational staffing needs in our response facilities. Despite the attrition rate we are experiencing, along with the challenges it poses, we continue to ensure that we work within our budget while still meeting the missions and mandates of our department. Given these challenges, we pride ourselves on the accomplishments we continue to realize through the professional and selfless servants that make up the Guam Fire Department. We are on the verge of replacing our antiquated 911 system with the anticipated signing of a contract in the next few weeks. In coordination with GCC, Department of Labor, and the School of EMS, our first paramedic course has commenced, and we look forward to graduating the first class in 12 weeks. We continue to equip our responders with the latest hazmat response equipment, extrication tools, automated external defibrillators, and self-contained breathing apparatuses. We recently procured 9 ambulances, and the procurement process for the acquisition of 2 structural fire pumpers are underway. Other accomplishments include, but are not limited to, attainment of the National Fire Academy State Point of Contact designation and the first ever wildland fire investigator certification for our personnel. What I am most proud of is the community partnerships and volunteerism of GFD members that has resulted in the renovation, repairs, and painting of various fire stations around the island, along with numerous charity drives, cleaning and painting of school bus stops, as well as donation of school supplies and equipment. We continue to work with GURA to build the new Sinahanya Fire Station, as well as an ongoing search and coordination with GITA to secure alternate funding via interested business investors to relocate and build a new Tumuning Fire Station. GFD continues to work with the Department of Agriculture, GPD, and GITA to secure grant funding to build an east side boat ramp at the Talafofo Bay. This will provide a much-needed access for not just recreational boating, but for emergency response to waters along those shores. GFD has begun planning meetings with GVB on building a rescue station in Tumon. Furthermore, we will be procuring fire water tenders during this fiscal year to replace our aging fleet. GFD continues to work with DOA with the creation of our fire inspector position. The Guam Fire Department is an all-hazard response career organization that consists of the following: Office of the Fire Chief, Administration and Support Services Bureau, EMS Rescue Operations Bureau, Fire Suppression Bureau, the Training Bureau, Fire Prevention Bureau, and the 911 Communications Bureau. The Guam Fire Department is requesting a total amount of $31,574,427 for fiscal year 2022. This amount reflects an increase of $45,949 from fiscal year 2021's appropriations for all funding sources. The table below details the amount being requested for each funding source and reflects the amount of increase or decrease when compared to the FY 2021 authorization level. As you can see in our general fund, we're asking $28,205,106. In our special fund, we're asking $3,369,321. In our E911 fund, we are looking for $2,159,975. In our Fire, Life, and Medical Emergencies Fund, better known as FLAME, we are looking for $974,832. In the Tourist Attraction Fund, we're requesting $234,514 for the grand total of $31,575,427. GFD's FY 2022 proposed budget from the general fund reflects the same amount authorization from 2021. Personal services decreased by $205,764, and operations increased by $205,764. The significant increase in operations was due in part to Object Class 233, office space rental, and 290, miscellaneous, being funded on the Tourism Attraction Fund and Flame Fund during FY 2021. In our special funds, E911 surcharge, GFD's FY 2022 proposed budget from the E911 surcharge fund reflects a decrease of $20,021 when compared to the authorization level of 2021. GFD's proposed budget from this funding source includes funding to adequately address personal services, as well as operations and utility requirements to effectively and efficiently run the operations at the 911 center. Under our Flame Fund, GFD's FY 2022 proposed budget from the Flame Fund reflects an increase of $65,970 when compared to the authorization of 2021. Funding being requested from this funding source will address the Guam Fire Department's annual requirements for contractual services, supplies and materials, equipment, and capital outlay categories. GFD is in dire need to procure medical, firefighting, and rescue equipment that are either damaged due to wear and tear and have exceeded their recommended lifespan. Furthermore, adequate funding for the capital outlay will allow GFD to procure rescue jet skis for our Sea Rescue Unit. Under the TAF GFD FY22 proposed budget from the Tourism Attraction Fund is requesting $234,514, and that remains the same authorization from 2021. Additional needs on contractual service categories are being requested for this specific funding source. It is important that funding be provided for GFD to address requirements for refilling of medical oxygen bottles, LP gas services, appliance repair and maintenance, building maintenance and repair, commercial trash service, and the lease of its copier machines. In conclusion, I would like to assure you that GFD's proposed FY 2022 budget will provide the adequate funding necessary to sustain our current progression in maintaining and or improving our levels of public service. The Guam Fire Department is deeply committed to meeting our island's expectations to continue to provide the professionalism, dedication, and high quality service that our island communities have come to expect from the men and women that make up the Guam Fire Department. I am personally committed to working with each of you to ensure the needs of our island are addressed within the realm of the fire service and public safety. Thank you again for allowing me this opportunity, and I look forward to answering any of your questions and take your recommendations. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Chief. I have a few questions. First of all, I want to agree and support the east side boat ramp in Talafofo. I was in communication last term, and we were trying to find funding for that. But I'm also concerned is that you didn't mention anything up north. At one point, I think there was a survey done in the last administration to figure out how they can build a emergency ramp, not only for recreational, but for emergency purpose, up north. I think it's Retidian area or somewhere down there. And I'm just concerned that if your folks can take a look at that, because in case there's an emergency up north, then you don't just have to bring them up from Tumon or from Ipao or from Boat Basin. You can just shoot off from that spot. Something to consider.
Absolutely, Senator.
Right?
Thank you.
Other questions, very simple. CARES funding, GFD was approved funding of $2 million to include purchase of 2 fire trucks. Was that accomplished? Was that a goal on that? You got your fire trucks? Or is it in the process?
In the process, yes, Senator.
Okay, but so you received the full amount, the $2 million then?
So let me qualify that, Senator, in that the original intent was to try to utilize the CARES funding. However, that it didn't meet the definition for CARES Act funding, so we are working with the administration to identify another funding source for the procurement of those fire trucks.
All right,
which
okay.
I believe we have, yes.
Hopefully they'll give it from the American Rescue Plan then, give you funding so you can take care of any of your CIP or any of your capital outlay program, all right?
Thank you, Senator.
So that's what we're hoping for. What's the status on your overtime? Is everybody up to date? Is there any prior year or current outstanding obligations?
So yes, Senator, we do have some prior year obligations. From what I'm reading is some unpaid premium pays for overtime for GFD personnel dating back to about 2015.
Back to 2015?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you didn't have any funding in this fiscal year? Because you know in the Budget Act, it did allow you to pay any prior year obligations if you had the funding. So please check with that.
Yes.
And at the same token, just a simple reminder, 46 million was the surplus. The administration is supposed to be paying all the vendors. I consider your people vendors also.
Yes, sir.
Okay, pay due. Maybe Mike can work that with the administration and find a way to get that paid. So you can close the book on that one and we can move on to a better future, okay? Is there any other federal funding that you've received and how much, if any? Did you receive anything else?
Other federal funding?
Any federal money?
Just so Senator, to that question, it's just the CARES Act and the Department of Interior, the DOI funding.
Okay, how much DOI money did you receive?
1.5.
And were you able to use it already? Did you, what I'm trying to get at, Chief, is that if they say they're going to give you, that's one. Did you receive it is two. And what you're doing with it, and just so the people of Guam know that you're getting something and you're able to move forward.
Yes, we did.
You did receive? How much?
We did receive, and it was 1.5.
Okay, 1.5, great. I will now pass the oversight chair Senator Pito, if he has any questions, please pose them or comments, and then followed by the Vice Speaker, and then we'll move around to my other colleagues. Thank you.
First off, I want to thank all the staff from the fire department, and I also want to thank all my colleagues for their participation this morning. Chief, what I wanted to do is on this budget hearing is to concentrate on your goals and objectives that you stated on your write-up. Your goals and objectives state that you are pursuing fiscal avenues to build a GFD headquarters, a GFD training headquarters, and enhance your 911 center. My question is, do you have an estimate of the cost for what you stated on your write-up?
So the estimated cost for those facilities, we don't have, Senator. That was an effort in collaboration with the GITA to be able to, so GITA was going to try and find some investors for who would be interested in the real estate where our present Tumuni Fire Station exists. And be able to leverage that value to be able to build or relocate and build the Tumuni Fire Station.
And Chief, and the reason why I'm asking these questions because, you know, all the things that you identified on this program can qualify on the American Rescue Plan funding that we expect to get. So I just wanted you to be aware that whatever numbers you come out with to make sure that you address that and so that maybe you can get the money from the American Rescue Plan funding request. Another one of your goals and objectives state that you are looking to purchase a management information system.
Yes, sir.
Chief,
So
can
Senator,
you explain what that would do and what capabilities it would provide and the cost of such a system?
So actually, Senator, if I can clarify that, the management information system is actually part of the Next Gen 911 purchase. So that system is also incorporated in that acquisition.
Okay. And the same reason that I stated earlier is that this can qualify on the American Rescue Plan that is coming to you guys, I would say.
Thank you, Senator. But that is already covered under our for the procurement for the.
Yeah, I just wanted to be sure that we take advantage of that money that's coming in. In your budget, you also mentioned that you are seeking funding for critical administrative and civilian positions. What position would those be, and how it is currently affecting your operation? Do you have an estimate for the cost of filling these critical positions?
So actually, Senator, what I think you're referring to is our desire to create a fire inspector position. So allow me to qualify that even more. So this would be a civilian inspector, not to be associated with the uniformed inspectors that we already have. The effort for this is going to be able to keep our uniformed personnel doing the technical side, such as plans reviews and things of that nature, and allowing these the civilian inspectors to actually go out and do those physical inspections at our licensed businesses. This way, this will alleviate that responsibility from our uniformed inspectors to be able to concentrate on the technical side of the job.
Very good, Chief.
So we are working with DOA to create that position.
Okay. Do the current estimates for your power bills include the price increase that is being proposed by GPA? You know that GPA is proposing to increase their power bills.
No, sir, it does not.
And you don't have an estimate of how much you have to pay for power on an annual basis?
It was I think we're projecting about 115,000, Senator.
How much?
115.
115,000?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Another thing that I wanted to bring about, Chief, is, and the staff, is one of the goals you stated in your budget is the review of the ambulance billing program and the GFD fee schedule. Can you tell us what the problem is with the current fee schedule, and what do you propose to fix it?
I thank you for the question, Senator. So, not necessarily a problem, Senator, with regards to the fee schedule. There is a by-law fee for our ability to collect on ambulance services. So what that is for emergent service, we are capped at, I believe it's $195 per run, and for non-urgent, it's $95 per run. So that is a by-law, that is set by law.
Okay.
So it does limit us the ability to be able to collect, realize the full collection from, what am I looking for?
Chief, how do you make this collection, and if they don't pay, what do you do?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question, Senator.
You know, on your ambulance service, right, some people are kind of just hesitant to do an immediate payment for the services that you do. So if they don't pay, then what happens?
So we do have a contracted bill provider. So they're the ones that actually send out the billing and collect the money for the services rendered, and then they remit that to us for under the. It goes back to us, and it goes under. Yeah. If I could, I'd like to refer over to Chief Burrier, who's been handling this system for a while.
Yes. Okay, our ambulance fees are collected by a billing company, third-party billing company called LifeQuest Services. So they put out...
Chief.
Oh, I'm sorry. Assistant Chief Darren Burrier.
There you go. Thank you.
Sorry about that. So when we do a response, they pick up our run and patient care reports off of the database that they automatically load to. And then they send out notices to the insurance companies and to the individual who was given service. So in many cases, we'll collect from the insurance companies, at least the 80%, and the 20% would go to the individual. In order to ensure that we collect from that, they will put out repeated notices. They can make payments at the bank, any Bank of Guam, at the teller. And if they do not make payments, then of course they get a going to collection notice in order to effectuate the payment.
So you coordinate with the insurance company to collect the money for the services that you guys do, right?
Excuse me?
You coordinate with the insurance company?
Yes.
To collect whatever that is not paid to the fire department, right?
Correct. So our billing, we collect from Medicaid, from our local Medicaid. We collect from Medicare, and we collect from all the different insurance companies.
Okay. Chief, you also mentioned in your budget that you want to replace your 911 system with a computer-aided dispatch system, or the CAD, right? What is a computer-aided dispatch system, and how does it differ from the current system that you have? And how much would it cost you to procure that new system?
So, Senator, the CAD, or the computer-aided dispatch system, is actually also incorporated in the procurement and acquisition of the next-gen 911 system. So they're all components of the overall system. So we are in the process of procuring that or acquiring that here within the next couple of weeks.
So what would be the amount?
I'm not able to discuss it because we have not awarded the contract as of this time just yet.
So you're going to have to do a bidding process on this one?
We've already gone through that process, Senator, and so we are actually at the latter stages of the procurement. We're on the final contract negotiation, and until then, we're just waiting for that final signature.
Okay, Chief. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
You know, the Guam Police Department has told us that they are looking to replace their antique radio communication system because the maintenance cost is getting to be too expensive, for one. And this older radio model, you know, we need to change that. Are you in the same boat with the radio system, and do you have any plans to replace this equipment soon?
So thank you for the question, Senator. So when it comes to, and I think you're referring to the SmartNet system,
Yes,
which is
yes,
what all
yes,
the
yes.
majority of the public safety community operates off of. The Guam Fire Department does not actually own that system. That actually falls under the Guam Police Department. So they would be best qualified to answer that question for you, Senator.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry, was there a part two to the question? I didn't quite hear it.
I understand, but I'm just trying to find out if you are coordinating with the Guam Police Department, you know, to do this program to enhance your communication system.
Absolutely, Senator. Yes, we're in communication with Chief Ignacio as we all work this solution.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
You know, I was looking through your budget document, and I want to thank you for you know, because most of the variance between 2021 and 2022, there's actually a reduction in the cost, and I want to thank you for that. I just wanted to mention that on your you know, your general fund for 2021, you have a variance of 536,000, and that's less than well, I think it's more than from 2021 to 2022.
Actually, under our general fund, Senator, it's status quo.
Yeah, in 2021 you have 2,179,000 and plus, and 2022 you have 2,159,000. So there's an increase of what I can trustfully say that your variance is only like 536,000 plus 438. Most of the comparison between your 2021 and 2022, and I give you credit for that because the variance is somewhat less cost for 2022, and there's an increase in 2022 versus the 2021, but I don't think it's that much. And I want to commend you for the budget document, and they just hand me these documents, and I don't think with my caliber, I don't think I can absorb all the numbers in here, but I just want to thank you all for your participation, and thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Pito. Chief, just want to remind you, and I know you probably have seen it, we've had a hearing recently on the resolution of what the Guam legislature is pushing. And we're basically asking that the governor gives you 4.7 million to cover a lot of the issues you brought up that you're looking for funding. Okay, so we're all crossing our fingers that the governor will give you no less than what we asked her to give you. And if she does give you more, it'll pretty much resolve a lot of your equipment issue, your CIP, what you're trying to coordinate with Gita. It'll give you that edge that you need. Okay?
I appreciate it. Yes, Senator. Thank you.
Madam Vice Speaker, do you have any questions or comments to the panel?
Sure do. Mr. Chairman, Zeus, thank you for giving me the opportunity to ask some questions and share some remarks to the Guam Fire Department. I know I hold them very dear and near to me, and I just want to say that, Mr. Chair, before I ask the questions, I just want to explain my train of thought. Some of the questions that I have been answered in part, but maybe I'll go through them over question by question so I can get a clearer delineation on what we can do to leverage, network, and even synergize, and even look at new opportunities that I've seen successes in other jurisdictions in the United States, because I think that sometimes not reinventing the wheel, but emulating the successes of what has already been nationally recognized, and maybe we can take that and implement them here to help out. So the first one is, I know you talked earlier about the Talafofo ramp, and I know that previously some of the Talafofo residents were asking about the timelines and were asking about the concerns and the considerations that they had, especially the residents of Talafofo. Has there been an engagement with the fire department and the village of Talafofo and even Jonia or all the villages in the south with the Guam Fire Department to share their issues of concern, because that was something that they felt was literally taken away from them? And what is the timeline for completion?
So thank you for the question, Senator, and I appreciate your fondness for the Guam Fire Department. So when it comes to the boat ramp down at Talafofo, when I first came into this position back in 2019, I did attend a meeting with the grantor and the grantees, which consisted of the Department of Agriculture, a recreational, Guam Police Department under the recreational boating, and then ourselves. And so the discussion was how do we make this happen? So it did come down to a funding issue, as typically everything does. But it also came down to an environmental impact. They had to conduct a study because of they needed to study the tide table, what the current patterns were in that area, and what would be necessary in order to make it a successful project. There was a continued discussion on that. However, what wound up happening is COVID struck, and then we kind of lost a little bit of traction on that. Just recently, within the past probably month, there has been discussions again to come back to re-engage in that discussion and to see what we can do to potentially move that project forward. As far as doing any kind of discussions with the village mayors, the respective village mayors in the South or the community, during my tenure, I have not had that done. I believe, please don't quote me on or hold me to this, I did discuss with Mr. Willie Flores that there probably was a discussion in probably 2017, 2018 with the resident, with the mayors, but I don't know that for certain. As far as an anticipated timeline, it's still very much in its infancy, so I'm not sure what that timeline would look like for you, Senator.
So the funds, the utilization and the funding for that project is not even near close to refurbishing or renovating that facility or that ramp?
I don't know if there's any funding specifically identified for the project. I know it was, the attempt was to utilize the recreational boating, recreational boating, but I don't know exactly where that funding source is going to come from now.
So you're saying there's nothing right now?
Senator, there's nothing, as far as I know, that I'm aware of.
Thank you. I've been watching closely the program that was created, the paramedic program, and I know you brought that up, and I want to commend your team, of course, Chief Dan Burrier, for the success and with the setting up the first one here on Guam, and with the first class that you said is wrapping up. What are our plans with the paramedics, and will you upgrade existing BLS units to ALS units, and do you have any necessary equipment to provide ALS level of care? If not, how far along are you with the process of getting the necessary equipment, such as the defibs and other necessary medical equipment? That's very near and dear to me. Dan, I think you know that.
I do.
For
I do,
a certain
Senator.
reason.
Absolutely, I understand. Yes. So again, thank you for the question, Senator. So you're absolutely right. We are absolutely excited about this program. If I can give you a little bit of backstory, that was the first question that the governor asked me when she interviewed me for this position was, Dan, what do you think about a paramedic program for the Guam Fire Department? And of course, this is not an effort that just started with, since I came on board. This has been an effort that we've been trying to launch for several years now. So the great thing is that we're finally at that point. So we already have about 30 students that are going through the class right now. And it's, as you are aware, it's a very labor-intensive class, and I'm just very excited about this class to be able to graduate. Excuse me. So as far as what we're going to do with the program, as I indicated in my testimony, is that our current advanced life support team are made up of intermediate medics who, if truth be told, they almost perform at paramedic level and have been for years. As a matter of fact, the comment I got back from the instructors when they came out to do the testing and the hands-on, the practicum side of it, was they were extremely impressed with the level of professionalism, knowledge, experience that our current teams have. And that, for the most part, it was almost like a review for them going through this paramedic course. And that's to say that it's not challenging, because they're at the point now in the curriculum where it is becoming much more demanding as far as study time and testing and things of that nature. So, it doesn't come without its challenges as far as their dedication to the program, because they are doing this while they're both at home and while they're on duty. They're doing their studies. So again, just very excited about this program, and I absolutely expect it to be very successful once we get these students graduated. Is the intent to convert our BLS units to ALS units? We are still talking about the different modalities that we can do for this. The current intercept program that we execute has been very successful. However, with the additional people personnel that are going to be qualified paramedics, that will allow us to kind of spread that throughout the island to be able to provide that service. And so the intercept program will probably still stay in place as far as our current operations, and we will continue to discuss the possibilities of moving it into becoming advanced life support units, whether we assign a paramedic to a BLS unit, or things, just the different thoughts that we have going on. And if I could, I'd actually like to have Chief Burrier talk about it a little bit more as far as what some of the different programs that we might be able to execute.
Thank you very much. Yes, Dan, if you can share your thoughts as one of the facilitators for this program, and like I asked earlier, what equipment will be necessary to further have this program become a success?
Yes, thank you, Senator, Vice Chair. For the current paramedics, when they complete the course, we'll have enough to actually operate the 2 intercept units, and we could possibly operate another couple of ambulances, but we'd have to get the equipment. And currently, ALS intercept units operate with LifePak 15s, which is an advanced level defibrillator. We have 2 in the office on storage that need to be refurbished. Just getting those refurbished and putting them onto 2 of our BLS units would help in getting them prepared to do paramedic level care. And then there's a few other items that we'd have to purchase in order to keep them.
Do you have a breakdown? Do you have an existing breakdown that we can work with? Numbers of how much it's going to cost?
Those numbers, all the cost of everything has changed. I could come up with an updated listing for that, and because it also entails with us doing controlled meds and medications, and then that's another purchase that we would have to do, because all the medications that we use on our patients comes out of our billing fees, and that's why our billing fees are not adequate when it comes to giving advanced care.
Well, maybe if you can, Chief, if you can give us an updated, I guess, a guesstimate of what, and a projection of what is needed to give you the necessary equipment and the tools you need to get this program continuing, but more importantly, especially with the refurbishments of the defib, that is critically needed for here. So if you can give the committee an update of the finances necessary, it truly would help us in helping you guys on this program.
Absolutely, Senator. I'd be happy to do so. However, if I could just, so we have been working with the State Clearinghouse, and we have identified some grant funding, because if you might be aware that we are utilizing a grant to be able to purchase an additional ALS unit. Along with that grant also comes some of the equipment. So Chief Berrier did submit to me basically a wish list of items. You know, some of them are the necessities, and then some of them are, you know, if we could get them, we would really like to have them. So we did submit that, and the Clearinghouse has been doing a phenomenal job as far as identifying those grant funds that make that eligible. So were we able to fill the list? They weren't, but they took a significant chunk out of it. Yes.
Maybe even a follow through with the administration, because there is funding there for federal funding, especially through the ARP, that we can work with to get this necessary equipment. Okay?
Absolutely, Senator.
Yeah. It is my understanding that the Guam Fire Department is short-staffed, and I know you mentioned that earlier, and the team has been stretched thin because of the pandemic. Does the Guam Fire Department have a hiring and recruitment plan to address the staffing issues?
Yes, Senator. So we have been working with the administration and the finance team to be able to identify that. As a matter of fact, I just followed up with the Department of Administration's on the HR side with regards to the applications for the recruit positions. I was very pleased to hear that they were almost completed with the rating of those applications, and that they actually asked our assistants to try and identify space that would be large enough to facilitate written testing for those qualified applicants. So we're making that progress towards hopefully holding that next academy. As far as promotions are concerned, again, working with the administration to try and get that addressed, and the discussions have been very good, and so we're just waiting for the opportunity to make those announcements.
Okay, so I've spoken to some of the firefighters who have informed me that the problem is even with getting additional certs, and there simply isn't enough classes. And speaking from talking to some family members, I know that CNMI Fire sends their men and women to the Maryland Fire Rescue Institute, and I know that efforts, through the previous administration, spearheaded the Western Pacific Islands Association of Fire Chiefs to see how we can help one another out on regional training. And I have been doing some research into the successful training programs for fire and law enforcement. And from my research, I want to give a good example. The Montgomery County of Maryland is leading the way in public safety training academy, and essentially they do it in just one facility, and that is built to specs, and you can train the fire, the police, the corrections officers, etc. So my take to you is, do you think a centralized facility which we can use for all our law enforcement as well as our partners from the region is something that the Guam Fire Department can look at? And I'm just thinking outside of the box, getting creative, and looking at opportunities out there to leverage and network with. So that's why I asked you that question.
Yeah, I appreciate the question, and it's interesting that you bring this question up, because what I'd like to do is I'd like to ask Chief Manabusan, who if there's anybody qualified to be able to get programs such as these off the ground, is Chief Manabusan. He's a very educated individual when it comes to the fire service, and we have been meeting with each other to do exactly what it is a very similar effort to what you're asking. So if I could, I'd like to defer to Chief Manabusan, and he can kind of give you an update.
Thanks, Assistant Chief Manabusan, please.
Chief Manabusan, Joey, Guam Fire Department, Training Bureau, and Acting Fire Marshal. Yes, Vice Speaker Tina Munoz-Barnes, ma'am. The Maryland program is a good program. It's among many other good programs around the nation. Currently, we are working with the Alabama Fire College, who has an online program. Now, that program has been announced to the Guam Fire Department, and what they do is they do provide pro board certification programs. What happened with the CNMI CPA, the Commonwealth Ports Authority ARF program, which they brought the pro board national standards, the National Fire Protection Association programs out to CNMI, and we acted as a satellite. But what happened was due to funding and staffing shortages that they're facing, and by the way, the fire service is facing nationwide. So they had to stop some of their programs due to costs. And programs such as the Fire Officer 3, Fire Officer 4, Fire Investigation, and even the Hazmat Incident Commander program, that had to temporarily cease for a while until funding becomes available. Other issues that they faced was they're in the process of reaccreditation. So that indirectly affected our programs here because we are operating under their umbrella. So right now what we're doing is just a few weeks ago, we put out an announcement. After clearing it with CNMI CPA, we put an announcement for starting with Fire Officer 2. So so far we had a few of our folks that did send in emails for basically expressing interest in getting the certifications. But I want more, and I want to give more a chance. So we're going to push it back one more week. We were supposed to actually start yesterday. So we're going to do like one platoon at a time. We're starting with, again, the Fire Officer 2, and we'll work our way to other programs, training programs. One of the challenges that we face, and yes, you brought up a very good point about facilities, is our limited space at our training bureau training room. Right now, we can accommodate up to about 15 based on the COVID specifications with public health, and of course, keeping in line with the International Fire Code occupancy requirements. We're only capable of holding up to 15, including the instructor. So a lot of changes have been made. There's a lot of improvements that have been made with the CPA. We're working on an updated SOP and an MOA with the Commonwealth Ports Authority. So, you know, I know everybody is always talking about COVID this, COVID that. COVID was a major setback for training in the fire service, to include the National Fire Academy. The National Fire Academy, just within the last few weeks, are now able to accept in-resident students, and a lot of programs have been migrating over to online seminars, which we've been participating in, the Guam Fire Department. So any questions with any of that?
So, and as far as the timeline and looking at the opportunity for probably a centralized facility, do you foresee that being doable?
Well, in terms of facilities, we have a partnership with Guam Community College.
Okay.
We do have our training facility, and as you spoke about thinking outside of the box, the Guam Fire Department, that's where we work at. We work outside of the box. Every day, in any response, in any activity we do, we have to work outside the box. That's the only way we survive and protect our community. So yes, ma'am, we do work outside of the box, like we've always been working outside of the box. So we have a lot of facilities. There are schools that we can use. We can work at UOG. You can use their facilities. So it's just a matter of getting these partnerships going. We have a lot of partnerships with other agencies, including Department of Agriculture, including the Anderson Fire Department, Navy Fire Department. We help each other out with training, and they are so open to assisting us, not only with response, but even with using their facilities. So yes, ma'am, we do share facilities. And again, with the whole COVID situation, social distancing, and you know, all of that taken into consideration, it continues to present limitations for training.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Chief, with the starting pay for firefighters around the country and even here with federal firefighters much higher than the Guam Fire Department, what are we doing to promote current firefighters so that they have a wage that they can support their families with? from Fire 1 to a Fire 2. It requires passing the pro boards to get promoted. Do we have the classes ready to allow our firefighters a chance for upward mobility? I think Mike might be able to answer that one, right, or Chief?
So I think Chief Agustin kind of answered the question as far as training, you know, because in order for firefighters to promote, there's the required training or certifications that go along with that. So the effort has definitely been trying to get those classes out there so that our firefighters can avail themselves of these certifications to be able to make themselves better applicants for promotion. As far as salaries are concerned, I think everybody would, everybody would be happy to get more, but I think by and large, based on population, and I think we are fairly compensated. People could probably argue that depending on who you speak to, but the interesting thing is the Post Commission, Dr. Fee over at the Post Commission actually presented to us a pay disparity or a pay disparity as far as police officers were concerned, which was a huge disparity as far as the pays on the salaries on Guam and compared to anybody in the United States of equal jurisdiction and population. So the governor and the lieutenant governor have also wanted to address this and have been asking the right questions as far as, well, how do we address this? What can we do to right size this and make it so we don't lose people to the federal services? And so it is an ongoing discussion. I don't know if there's a quick remedy or a quick answer to it.
So, the only reason why I was asking, because it was brought up to my attention, but if you're saying that nationally Guam's firefighters are comparable or in comparison to, they're the same, then maybe I'm getting my information wrong from the firefighters, but this was an opportunity for you guys to see where you're at or maybe what the difference is. The governor asked about the disparity. I mean, is there a disparity with the firefighters' pay here on Guam versus the national level?
Well, Senator, absent the ability to see what the information that you have and the comparables, I wouldn't be able to properly answer that question for you. If I could see what it is that you're comparing versus what we know, we might be able to come to a better answer for you.
Okay. Oh, we'll further look into that.
Thank you, Senator.
Just wanting to help out the firemen.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate it.
Over the past few years, we've heard GFD discuss the new gen system, and I know you spoke about it earlier, how the technology updates are necessary to provide this critical service to our people. I know that you guys know that Bill 57 was passed earlier this year, and GFD is that one step closer to funding this purchase. So as of today, where are we at in acquiring the new gen system? I know you talked about it, but what is the timeline?
Correct.
The next 6 months, next 3 months?
So actually shorter than that, Senator. I'm hoping within the next few weeks that we're going to be able to have be able to identify an awarded vendor and sign into a contract.
So that's in the works. You're going to identify the vendor, to choose the vendor.
To award a vendor and enter into a contract,
so
yes.
The timeline to getting this system in place, implemented, and ready to rock and roll is what? Give me a timeline. So
we're anticipating to be able to enter into contract with the awarded vendor within the next few weeks. Once they're awarded and a notice to proceed is issued, it's a 12-month build-out.
12 months?
12 months, yes, Senator.
Okay. I guess we'll see next budget cycle if the implementation is there or not. Okay.
Yes.
Aside from our current E911 system, I know much of our technology is in desperate need of upgrading, and we talked about the radio technology and our radio towers, which is needed again for public safety officers to communicate with each other. And from our understanding, our radio systems and our towers are decades old, and most of it, if not all, of the parts needed for repair are no longer in production. You spoke earlier and you said it was a GPD responsibility, and I was going to ask you what the estimated cost for these technological updates and what services would be affected if these updates were not made on a timely manner, but is there a collaboration with GPD and the other law enforcement agencies to work closely with you? I mean, there's no co-sharing of payments or anything?
Well, no, at present, no. So the Guam Police Department has been the custodian for the SmartNet system. So all the land mobile radio systems actually fall under the Guam Police Department. So we always express our needs and our wants with them. Chief Steve has done everything he can to try and get that addressed. I know he's definitely trying to get an active study done, a study done so that they can figure out what it is they need in order to get us that next system. What are some of the areas that might need additional infrastructure support, things of that nature. So, but he would be best qualified to answer where they're at as far as that is concerned.
I will follow through and get back with you on that one also.
Thank you, Senator.
Mr. Chair, one last question, and I know the chief talked about it earlier regarding the overtime for typhoons, and I believe some of the overtime goes back. You said to 2015,
Yes,
and my
ma'am.
notes have it for 2014. And we know we did talk about the additional staffing, needing additional staffing to provide government services, but we also need to pay for the current employees what they are owed in a timely manner. So my question to you is, how much additional overtime has GFD accrued during the pandemic, and will the agency pay out all overtime obligations this year?
Thank you for the question, Senator, and I'd like to be able to turn that question over to Chief Michael Kanko for that.
Thank you.
Test. Michael Nkanko, Assistant Fire Chief. No, we have not accrued any in terms of unpaid overtime to current relative to COVID. We've paid all the overtime, every pay period our guys work.
It's paid.
Yes, ma'am.
But in as far as the overtime that is due since 2014,
Yes. These are typhoon overtime premiums that we don't, on a normal basis, we don't pay it out of our budget. It is paid out through Homeland Security or Civil Defense on their so-called emergency funding. Now, the governor, or Chief Stone here, met with the governor's chief financial officer, provided them the documents, and that, if I'm not mistaken, was forwarded to Homeland Security to address.
so you're saying it doesn't come out of the GFD budget, it comes out of somewhere like Homeland
Yes, ma'am.
Security?
Yes,
and all
ma'am.
that. But do you have an amount of how many, of what the officers are owed and how many?
Well, we have a total of 327,000.
327?
27,000 for 6 storms.
Okay. And are those recoverable with,
Pardon me?
have you been communicating with the administration to see how this can be,
Yes, the fire chief asked, sir, ma'am.
okay. So we're only looking at $327,000 left?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Chair, thank
All
you
right,
very much.
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Vice. Chief, reminder, Budget Act 2021 allows you to pay prior year obligation. If you've got the funding, don't be turning to the administration. Figure that out, get it paid, close the books on it. I'm not going to refer to my director who's going to tell me the page and the section number, and I know you're aware of it, Chief, okay? So let's get this wrapped up. Let's not drag this any further. None of the personnel should be owed anything that's 2014, 2015, okay? We'll close that.
Yes,
I
sir.
have now Senator Amanda, my vice, to ask question, followed by Senator Tello. Senator Amanda?
Sajis Masi, Mr. Chair, Hafaday, gentlemen, thank you very much for being here this morning, for all the information you shared in your presentation.
Hafaday,
I think you covered most of my questions in your very thorough presentation and all of the questions from the chair and from the vice speaker. I did want to ask a follow-up question about the proposed boat ramp in the south. I think many senators here have heard from constituents with a vested interest in having a a ramp put in the southern part of the island for access to more fishing to help sustain our people. And you did mention that there are no really hard plans for us, but if we did follow through with these plans, do we have an estimated cost?
So I do not have that estimated cost, Senator. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Because it is a grant that we don't own. It actually falls under Department of Agriculture, recreational boating. We were just part of the discussion because obviously there's a need for the Guam Fire Department to be able to gain access to that side of the island, and so they asked for our input for that purpose. But as far as funding is concerned, I don't know exactly where that funding source was going to come from.
Okay, I understand. I was hoping that we could have an idea of a number so that we could perhaps look for a way to source that project or to fund that project. But I do understand. We'll continue to look for those answers. Thank you very much
Thank you,
for that, Chief. And I was thankful to hear about all the partnerships for training for the fire department. And I know that the Guam Community College in their budget hearing also shared with this committee that they will be conducting various workforce training boot camps throughout the summer. And I know GFD will be a part of that. Can you tell us how many GFD personnel will take part this summer, and what can we expect? What kind of certifications they will receive, and what does this mean for salary adjustments for the future?
Senator, I'll defer that over to Chief Manabusan.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Chief Manabusan, Training Bureau. At this time, we are working with GCC, and they are assisting us with the paramedic program, by the way. And the same folks that are assisting us with the paramedic program are also running the boot camp programs. So there's going to be many opportunities for these types of programs and other types of professional development programs. But currently at this time, that is the program that they are assisting us with. And they handle other boot camp programs, like the truck drivers and so on and so forth. But in our particular case, with Chief Berrier, who started it with GCC, U.S. Department of Transportation, and the School of Education, and the Guam Fire Departments, through these partnerships, we're able to get the paramedic program up and running. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. And lastly, I wanted to ask about the partnership between GFD, GPD, the Department of Parks and Recreation, and the Guam Visitors Bureau dealing with the Tuman Koban at Matapang Beach. I know there was a desire to house a search and rescue unit in Tuman so that there would be a faster response in that area, and especially now with more recreation from our local people who want to be outdoors. And as we anticipate the reopening of tourism, this was a priority that seemed to be maybe refocused during the pandemic. Is there any discussions that are now being re-upped with our partners to see if this is something that we'll move forward with?
Yes, Senator. So the answer is yes, and we're very excited about that because, as you've already indicated, the need for us to be able to place our rescue units down on the waters, especially those most visited by both our tourists and the locals, is necessary in order to make sure that we provide the best safety that we can in those waters. It also provides us a response path out via the channel out to the waters off that shoreline as well, for any distressed swimmers or distressed vessels. And so there has been ongoing discussions with, as you've indicated, Guam Visitors Bureau, Parks and Recs, ourselves, GPD, for that very facility. I believe, so we did have a meeting last week. We were getting all that information together so that so GVB can take that information and be able to create what that job scope would look like.
Okay, thank you. We'll look forward to that information coming forward.
I as well.
Too.
Thank you, Senator.
Okay, and lastly, I wanted to say congratulations to all of you on receiving the GITA grant, the Community Contribution Grant, for $25,000 to assist with new drones for open ocean search and rescue operations. I'm sure that'll add great value to to what you all are already doing to assist our community. So congratulations and to Deuce Masi for the information today.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate that. Yes, we're very excited about that program.
Thank you, Senator Amanda. Senator Tello, do you have any questions or comment for the panel?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Hafaday, gentlemen,
Hafaday, Senator.
should I say Hafaday chiefs? They're there. Thank you so much for being here. And I just wanted to also reiterate what the former, or actually Senator Shelton mentioned with regards to Tuman. I had that question too as well, if you are engaging in an area to launch out of Tuman. So yeah, please let us know, because supposedly there's some funding that's supposed to be there, and if you're sitting at the table, you can also tell them what your needs are in order to provide that safe and secure outreach to the rescue in that area, okay?
Yes, Senator.
Thank you so much. The debt that I'm aware of that you have is about $381,298, which of course you mentioned it was back in 2014. That most of it is overtime. However, not all of it is overtime. Some it has, is that true, or is it completely all overtime that is owed on the about 381,000? Chief Mike? Yeah.
Test. They're not overtime, they're typhoon premium differential.
Right, typhoon,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Because it
yes.
happened to do with the typhoon in 2014, if I'm not
Yes,
mistaken. Okay.
There's been numerous typhoons that came our way,
Right.
and those have not been paid.
So it's still owed all the way since 2014. And
Yes, ma'am.
even though the chairman mentioned about the lapses, if you have any lapses, you'll be able to cover any kind of prior obligations or debts, right? But will you have enough to cover this?
Realistically, being honest, we won't have any lapses.
Okay, have you requested into your budget
We did,
presentation?
this was inserted into
To
the
cover
budget
it?
document, yes.
Okay, so it is in
Yes.
there. Okay,
Yes.
that's a concern. That's
Yes,
all.
ma'am.
That's good to know. It's in there and you're covering it. Currently, is there any overtime right now that you did not anticipate for FY 2021 that you may come across that you don't have enough funding for?
Well, the one thing that we don't anticipate, yeah, I mean, you know, in the future, way ahead of time is people retiring. So whenever one individual retires, it normally equates to about 2 individuals performing overtime. So those were unanticipated in itself.
I see.
Other than that, we were trying to stay within our budget. And then, of course, with the COVID operations, we activated certain units which required additional manning.
And that funding, a lot of it came from the CARES funding, if I'm not mistaken, to cover those expenses?
No, basically not.
Then?
CARES funding paid for the hazardous pay
Oh,
in
wow.
itself. Not for, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not sure CARES Act was part of the, can cover overtime. One thing is, though, we are seeking reimbursement with FEMA.
Oh,
for-
FEMA, yes.
Yes.
That's good. Yeah, I've heard the other public safety officers mention FEMA and the collection
Yes.
on that. So, Chief Mike, the anticipated FY21 that we've already initiated to, so there's some anticipation for overtime that needs to be funded. I'm hoping that if you do have lapses, if you don't, then it's time to incorporate this in the 2022 budget, that you are anticipating additional costs, that you won't have the lapses for us to incorporate that. You know, I do notice a lot of the individuals who have been retiring, and are you able to fulfill the obligation with the retirement so that they can retire at Guam Retirement?
Yes, we do.
Okay,
There
good.
be,
Excellent.
we're a line agency, so all of our contributions are being remitted to
Very good.
retirement. Yes.
GFD needs to learn from you guys. I got a 1.2 million bill on that one. Okay, let's move on. Okay, Tuman was done. Do you have any problems obtaining any bids out there for construction that you want to incorporate? Because we're finding out that some agencies put out bids and they just can't get somebody to, bid on their proposals for construction. They're having trouble finding construction. I know that you have several things out there.
So the Guam Fire Department hasn't had any issues with regards to having people bid on projects. With regards to the Sinania Fire Station that GURA is actually championing for us, they've actually had some successful submissions. As a matter of fact, we should be meeting, I believe it's next week, to actually do the review of those interested parties.
Okay. That's good to hear.
Yes.
Because some agencies are having problems for even them to get their bids answered or their submissions for proposals. With regards to recruitment, I'm showing here the vacancy report that you provided us is 144 vacant positions. Is that true?
Yes, Senator, it is.
144 vacant positions. How many of these are actual staffing that are not individuals? Oh, it does say it here.
Yeah, yes.
So you're, okay, of all that, how many firefighters do you need to fill these vacancies for firefighters? Yeah.
How many firefighters do we need? So if you see the vacancy for firefighters would be minus the 34 for fire recruits. For actual uniform would be 120. I'm sorry. What am I looking at? There we go. So I'm sorry. So it's 131 vacant positions. So if we can get 131 firefighters, we would be in a good position.
131.
Basically, or actually our number of firefighter recruits that we have vacant is 34. The remaining vacancies are for promotions.
Right.
In
Oh, I
itself.
see.
Yes.
Oh, I see.
But
So
it would create that amount of vacancies upon completion of the promotion because it creates a domino effect downwards.
I see.
Right. So as we promote up and roll people up, we create the vacancies at the entry level.
I see. So of these recruits that will fill those vacancies, like firefighter 2 that's in there, and you got some other, you have a battalion chief that says vacant on your report.
Well, actually, the recruits would fill that firefighter 1 position.
Right. So how are you going to fill these firefighter 2s that are vacant, and the battalion, you have a battalion chief that's vacant, and of those vacancies...
Those are through those promotional opportunities,
through
Senators,
promotions.
right. Yes,
And
ma'am.
of those promotions that comes with additional funding, have you incorporated that anticipated for FY 2021? Have you incorporated it into your budget?
No.
Oy. Okay. OSB, did you hear? So you did not incorporate that funding into your budget? Chief, we're going to need to know how much funding you need in order to fill these positions and how much it's going to cost you for your anticipated of promotions as well as recruitment coming into fire department. We need to know how much that's going to be. And that's what should have been in your budget because you have to anticipate that for the full year. So, Chief Mike, do you have a roundabout figure, what you need in order to accomplish this for FY 2022?
Well, to fill all our positions and to fill all our positions by recruitment or promotions, includes the 13 civilian staffs in itself. It's going to cost us $3.8 million.
3 point what?
$3.8 million.
Okay, and that's not incorporated in your FY 2022
No, it's
budget?
not.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that information. It's very important to know. Can you tell me, Chief, what funds the Flame Tree Fund? What money is, or Chief Mike, what money goes into the Flame Tree? How is it
The
funded?
Flame Fund itself is, the revenues coming in there is from the ambulance service,
Okay,
the court fines or fines for violation of the fire code, and basically that's it. Just our fees and fire prevention fees such as permits, plan reviews, and things like that.
and the Flame Tree, in last year's budget, the FY 2021, was requested of $908,862. Were you able to reach that amount of funding? Did you?
Yes, ma'am, we were.
Okay. Are you anticipating any of the tourist attraction fund? Let me go to that one next because it sounds like you're able to receive the money and the requested amount. But the tourist attraction fund for FY 2021 was appropriated at $234,514. Have you received all your allotments from the tourist attraction fund?
Yes, ma'am.
So you have gotten that?
We are using it at this point.
Okay, no problem with
No
allotments. That was my next question. You're
Yes.
getting all your allotments, no problem.
Yes, we are.
Okay, great. Okay, Chief Mike. The ARP funding, you know, we had and the good chair mentioned it, that we put aside about $4.6 million for a fire department in the resolution that we put together for the ARP funding. How much money, Chief Stone, have you requested from the ARP funds?
So for our, so the recommendation to the governor, I believe, was about 10 million.
10 million?
Yes, ma'am.
10 million. Oh, thank you so much for that. 10 million, okay. And that's mostly on equipment. None of that is salaries, correct?
No, inclusive of that was salaries.
Oh,
But then we discovered, or we were told, that it does not cover personnel costs, if I'm not mistaken.
Of the 10 million, how much in salaries?
Pardon me?
And of the 10 million that you requested in
That's a 3.8 million to cover promotions and
3.some million,
recruitments.
Chief Mike?
Pardon me?
You said
3.8 million?
for salaries?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, that's going to
And
be.
6.4 for equipment and
Equipment.
supplies.
Okay. Okay, and 6 for equipment. It's kind of hard for us to swallow on the salary part because, you know, this is a one-time deal, you know, and you don't want to bring in somebody new or, you know, maybe to cover some overtime expenses, but.
Right, as we learn more and more, because we're still awaiting that final guidance from
Sure.
Treasury, and so
Yeah.
once we get that final definition, that'll help. So our recommendations to the governor are just that, they're just the recommendations, and
Okay. Okay, that's good. And the last question I have for you, Chief, is with regards to building maintenance. You have indicated in here your goals and objectives, and you said that acquire maintenance facility for GFD, fleet maintenance, and repair section. Okay, if you acquire a maintenance facility for GFD, for fleet maintenance and repair section, if you don't have that, where do you have these repaired?
so it's not that we don't have a facility, we don't own a facility. So at present, our maintenance facility is co-located down at the DPW compound.
Okay,
So we share space that they've made available to us.
okay. Okay, sounds good. And your buildings, I'm sorry, maybe it's one more question because it reminded me of maintenance. Do you set aside, and how much of that do you set aside for building maintenance on your buildings?
So it's capital outlay.
Upgrade building maintenance set aside?
Well, a lot of it comes out of supplies because the maintenance portion is handled by Department of Public Works.
Okay.
We
Oh,
normally reach out. For those that DPW can't provide repairs to, then we do send out for contracted services. But we don't set any particular amount aside. It's basically one lump sum to contractual services. And we prioritize them as they come along.
Okay.
So,
I see. Okay, well, thank you so much, Chief Joey, Chief Darren, thank you so much, and Chief Mike, and thank you, Chief Stone, for all your work. And, you know, you know, you thought I was going to bring up the disabilities and the 911 scenario, and I know you're doing a great job on it already, and even engaging in DISIT to ensure that that electronic listing roster is available too. So thank you so much for doing that, Chief Stone.
Thank you, Senator. And you're welcome. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Tello. Chief, I go back to the ARP just a little bit. Convince them, the administration ain't to give you the money and the issue she brought up, and there was brought up a promotion. If you take off all your CIP and it covers all that, it gives you the money to promote. Okay, so I'll let Mike figure that math out real quick. Mike knows where I'm coming from. If you got the money, do it. If you don't use it, don't look at us. This is on you. We're not the chief. You are the chief.
Yes, sir.
You guys are in charge, not us.
Yes, sir.
All right? Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Tony, you have any questions, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On that issue on promotions, as long as you don't go from firefighter 1 to captain.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, I'm just saying. Anyway, Chief, I just got a couple of questions, and I was looking over your vehicles. Who does your maintenance on your vehicles?
So we have our own in-house mechanics that do the basic maintenance on our vehicles. Anything that goes out beyond their scope, then we would go to the contractual services.
Yeah, because I tell you, 70 vehicles in your fleet, 5 vehicles out of service, 65 vehicles operational. That's quite impressive for a unit that runs 24/7. And hats off to your mechanics for at least doing the preventive maintenance to keep it up, and then also whoever you do to the long-term contracts. And I think that's what we need to look for in the future in agencies that run 24-hour operations in keeping their vehicles maintained. And with you folks, again, to your mechanic, hats off to them, and to the leadership for ensuring that these vehicles have constant maintenance, because we don't want an ambulance breaking down in the middle of the road, or we don't want, when we need a vehicle to, or even a jet ski or the boat to go out to save lives, that they're not operational. So I commend you for that, Chief, and your people.
Thank you.
The only other question I do have, because everything else has been asked, is have you applied for federal grants for programs or personnel that has to be carried on by the general fund later on in the past year or two?
Right. So I think you're alluding to the SAFER grant, Senator. So that is a grant that does, as you've indicated, will pay a certain percentage first year, second year, and then it goes down from there. And then I believe it's third year. It's been a little bit since I've looked at that grant. I believe it's third year where we would have to actually assume the full cost of that.
And when does that third year come around?
The current year come around for that. For SAFER.
If I'm not mistaken, the assistance firefighter grants closed in April, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't have that info readily offhand. Maybe Chief Maga'hågan?
We can definitely get back to you with regards to that, Senator.
You're talking about when it would be coming around, the SAFER grants, right?
Yeah, so what I want to know
Yes.
is when is the general fund going to have to pick up those personnel or the program for that, because we're not sure what the future holds, right, for the general fund, and we just want to make sure that these type of grants that are applied for that require your department to pick up the program or the personnel past the expiration of the grant, that there's funding for it. And I think sometimes when agencies come before the legislature, that they inform the legislature of these grants that they applied for, and that in 2 years will be coming up the expiration of the grant, so we'll be coming to the legislature to carry over now this program or the personnel.
So actually, Senator, we have not applied for that SAFER grant, correct?
All right, thank you. And
because of that very reason.
So have you applied for any grants that were not used and you had to return funding?
No, we have not.
That's great to hear. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, that's the only questions
Thank
I
you,
have.
Senator.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you to all of you.
Thank you, Senator Tony. Senator Chris, do you have any questions or comment for the panel?
Chief Mr. Chairman. Chief Stone, Chief Nkenko, Chief Maga'hågan, Chief Breyer. You have obviously today are flanked by very strong institutional knowledge. I noticed under your challenges, you said there's an indication for 4 additional possible retirements by 9/30/2021. I hope the gentlemen that are flanking you right now are not part of that floor. You need,
I won't sign off on it, sir.
don't sign it. That's what I used to tell my people, that I didn't
Right,
want to lose
right.
that. I won't sign your retirement.
Thank you. And
First
you're,
of
you're
all-
absolutely correct, Senator. You know, very professional, very experienced.
Exactly. I think all this promotion talk today has made our chairman promote Senator Ada. He got to go to the higher podium. You know, a lot of the questions have been asked. I just really only have one, but I wanted to start by commending your team during this and still ongoing COVID pandemic. You know, Chief, you guys are out there in the field. You're the frontliners. You're responding to any and all emergencies. And you know, I've watched your team. I'm kind of close to the GMH hospital, and I see your team constantly, you know, working on your vehicles, sanitizing, and the fact that you've had your infection rate really quite low compared to the contacts that you have is really a testament to what the guys are doing out there, not only to protect and save lives of our public, but keep your troops safe too, so they can continue to respond to emergencies. So I just want to commend you and your team for that. You've doing an amazing job.
Thank you very much, Senator. And you're absolutely correct. It's been a total team buy-in. You know, from our emergency medical dispatchers that get that call and kind of ask all the questions that are appropriate to make sure they prepare the responders getting to where they're going, doing their job. Our decon teams coming in, it's just been unreal, the buy-in that the department has had. They, as you've indicated, they've absolutely understood the gravity of the situation, and then they're doing everything that they can to stay in the fight, and we will remain in this fight until it's over.
Yeah, that's
Thank
why
you for that, sir.
Sure. That's why I was looking at Chief Manambusan, because when one of my colleagues was asking about training, and I've had a chance to work with many of your chiefs and your team over the years, and I would honestly say that Guam's level of training is at or above par when we come to national standards.
I agree with you.
You guys do set the record, you know, set the bar high, and continue to accomplish that. Like I said, most of the questions have been asked about the budget. I want to commend you for submitting a realistic, basically status quo budget, and we look forward to working with you as you go along, as the chairman said, you know, as the needs develop. But I think you've been very cognizant of what's, you know, what the situation is, and living within this ceiling at this point, and we'll work with you going forward. My standard question, hopefully I don't get the standard answer. So there's been a lot of talk today about the American Rescue Plan and requests and the like. So, Chief, have you made a formal request to the governor's office for American Rescue Plan funds? And if so, can you give us the amount and just the general program areas?
Right. So we are, as you already know, we are in constant discussion with the administration. We've made the recommendations to the governor based on her request as far as what our needs would be, so that she can make the decisions on how to properly utilize this investment back into the island. And so with that, I just, you know, again, they're still waiting the guidance. I think we're all kind of holding our breath to figure out what that final laydown is going to be for it. So until then, I just make my recommendations, and we continue to have that discussion so that she can make her priorities.
Okay, so we're continuing to plan as well. We've made recommendations as well to support law enforcement, and of course, you know, all of our medical, you know, requirements and everything that GFD does on life saving. So, you know, can you let us know, is there personnel requests in there?
Yes, there is.
Okay. And so at least, you know, we have an idea as we go along that, you know, we can be working with all the agencies. We hope to see that plan. And I know there's discussion on guidelines and the like, but for us, from our perspective, planning and how it affects the general fund is really important. So
yes, sir.
Once again, Chief and your team, you know, thanks for all you're doing. And we look forward to working with you going forward. Jesus Masi, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. I'll be sure to convey that to the troops.
Thank you, Senator Chris. Senator Joanne, do you have any questions or comments for the panel?
Thank you very much, Chairman. I know a lot of questions have been asked today, and I certainly appreciate the comprehensive presentation. I do have to ask, because this complaint was made to my office, and it's a long-standing one. And it's one that, you know, does occur, unfortunately, in government agencies. Out of the 3 that I've been the head of, 2 of them I've had incidences where I've had personnel that have falsified their timesheets, particularly with regards to overtime. And that's been a long-standing allegation that has followed the Guam Fire Department because, of course, your personnel that work out in the fire stations have the additional hours that are added every 2 weeks that they benefit from that other GovGuam agencies do not have. And unfortunately, while I think most people follow the rules and do what they need to do, you always end up with a few rotten apples at the bottom of the barrel that abuse that. And that complaint was made to my office earlier this year, that there are incidences where you have fire personnel who are supposedly on the clock, but are not on the clock, but are being paid those hours. And I wanted to get your official public response with regards to that, because the concern was raised, and again, Chief, this comes from your side of the aisle. I don't work at the Guam Fire Department. We don't. We're not there to see who's following their hours and who is not, but certainly ultimately that decision and responsibility lies with you. There were allegations being made that people that worked in the administrative offices of Guam Fire are not working those additional hours that they're being paid. Now, the standard response publicly that has been made from one fire chief to the other is that our fire personnel in the administrative offices are assigned, or after their office hours, are going out to the different fire precincts and doing additional work there to make up for what is on average 4 hours an additional workday if you look at a 2-week period. So I wanted to get your public response on that, and how are you addressing it? Now we are getting to the point, the focus in government accountability has often been attracted to our level, be you at elected a capacity of, the village mayor, you're the senator, you're the department director. A lot of that attention has been placed on that, but certainly from our perspective, we don't mind that comes with the territory that we are under, the microscope, but we also have an expectation as the public is, as time is going on, that the rest of the government of Guam be as accountable with regards to what they do. Even though classified employees in the government of Guam have been given the shield, that even when there's serious issues that involve adverse action and publicly our people are kind of taken aback by it, we go, oh, it's not publicly discussed because they're classified employees. And I think as time goes on, that's something we as policymakers may look at, because some of these offenses are just beyond acceptable. I feel very much that everyone that works for the government of Guam is a public official and has a responsibility to ensure that, if they are being paid their work hours, in all fairness, that they're performing those hours. And there are specific allegations made to certain divisions that these individuals were claiming overtime that they really were not working. And we have no problem. If people work their hours, by all means, they should be compensated. But for those that are abusing it, those mechanisms are going to change as time goes on, because the public desire for that is increasing. We realize, we can change all of us up here any day of the week, but if we don't ensure that accountability within the rest of the government of Guam, we're going to continue to see abuses that we've seen, and we know it exists. But in particular for Guam Fire Department, how are you addressing that? Because they had some claims you have employees that might be assigned to the administrative offices because they might have medical circumstances that limit their capability of actually performing, their jobs as firefighters. And so they're asking, how is it possible these individuals are out there working after hours? If I'm going to go knock on your door at 9 o'clock at night, is there going to be somebody answering in the admin office? Because these individuals are claiming, yes, we are working these hours, but are they working those hours? Can you give us a response to those allegations?
Yes, Senator. So they are working their hours. If there are any complaints or allegations of misuse or abuse, I would encourage anybody to go ahead and bring that up to us, and specifically bring it to my staff assistance office, which handles those types of complaints, accusations, or concerns, and we will investigate it to the fullest extent. But as far as those who are assigned to administrative staff and are submitting timesheets, they're working those times.
How do you verify that?
Well,
and the reason I'm bringing it up, because like I said, these allegations are coming from your side of the aisle. You're going to have your guys out there that are feeling, hey, we're out here doing the job, we're out here all these hours. Like we heard from DOC yesterday, we have sometimes the opposite end of the pendulum of complaints that, we're working more hours than we have a life to live anymore, and that doesn't cut it for us, because the demands are greater than the ability of a simple human being to be able to juggle all that, including their family life. So we understand that issue. But how are you able to verify? Because these are long-standing allegations, and they continue to follow the Guam Fire Department. Not every agency has the extended hours up to 120 hours that you have in the Guam Fire Department. I mean, yes, other department and agencies in certain areas work overtime, but there are also positions in the government of Guam that employee will never get to earn overtime, just because of their position and how it's structured and what those demands are. Maybe they get comp time or whatever the case may be. So there's wanting to ensure, while we're wanting to ensure people are properly compensated for the work that they do, how are you able to verify that that work is being done? Are you checking? Because I ended up finding out employees were claiming hours that they weren't working because I went and checked in the evenings and the weekends because things weren't adding up to me. And it's unfortunate that it happens, but it does happen. I'd like to think it doesn't happen at the Guam Fire Department, but you know, these are long-standing allegations that continue to plague your Guam Fire. It doesn't matter who the chief is. It's been following because these hours are given. The intent was never for administrative personnel to be put in this same line of compensation. I mean, it's very clear in the law who's entitled to these hours. So how are you addressing? How would you know for sure, other than someone coming to you directly? I mean, from your oversight, how are you looking internally within your operations to ensure that this is not an issue? I mean, how are your administrative people working how many hours a day, 5 days a week, to address those hours? And why is there so much need for administrative oversight when the real work is actually out in the fire department, out in the community, where people want to see their firefighters?
Sure, and thank you for the question, Senator. But yeah, and as you've indicated, it's been a question that comes up on a regular basis. And all I can say is that for those who feel that that is the case, that they feel that there is those that are claiming for work hours that they don't work, I would ask them to come up to the administration, come up to the headquarters and try to work those kind of hours, because while those at the fire stations, you know, they come in, they do their 24-hour shifts. Not all of that is productive time, in that they have those rest periods and they're allowed to be able to sleep, basically. Whereas those that are administrative are working those all those hours. And not only that, they also carry those work hours to home, because the way I'm able to verify that is through their work, the work product. Because I'm getting those products back in a timely manner and meeting the needs and expectations that I have for them. And then, of course, there's the supervisors, and then there's several layers of checks that go along. There's a supervisor, there's a bureau chief that signs off on it, as well as our ASO, and then myself. And so there are several checkpoints to make sure that people are working those hours. Again, I think the only answer I can really provide to you, Senator, is if somebody has knowledge, information, evidence to the contrary, then I would encourage them to come up, because if that's happening, I want to know about it. But as far as I've been able to see, as far as productivity, times, being able to get eyes on people, people are where they're supposed to be.
Well, I just think you should keep an extra eye out, because I don't know how many people who work in the admin side are working for 8 full hours and going home working another 3 or 4 hours every single night. I don't believe that. And I've been in this government, I've been in it a long time. And I just think it's something to be mindful of, because now that the whole dynamics is starting to shift with the creation of the Ethics Committee, with the expectation now that we are going to require all Government of Guam employees to go through ethics training, even though I think a lot of us know, what's right and what's wrong, what's basic. That's pretty basic, but there's a lot of abuse in the Government of Guam, and I think our public in general, the fact that some of us are here is a sign of disappointment that the public has. I'm not saying specifically for you or your people that are sitting in front of us, but we all know, you've all worked in, I don't think there's a single government agency that's untouched by these issues, and that, you have individuals that want to abuse the process. They actually pride themselves in taking advantage of the situation. So I'm sure you know, Chief Maga'hågan, you've been around a long time, you know that. But now that the mechanisms of reporting and accountability are getting greater simply because of the ability and the technology that's there, goodness, we can sit here and record everything. We don't want to see that. I think that's a very clear message. I'm sure in your leadership you don't want to see that. But when these complaints do come up, they're coming from your side of the aisle, and it's something to be mindful of, even just to put an extra eye, because I really hate to see when people have an opportunity and they abuse it. I think the public is kind of tired of that sort of thing. Some people look at us in government and just, they don't even have a word to say anymore, because they're struggling out there in the private sector, especially after a result of this pandemic and the economic impacts, and then they're seeing us we're getting our paychecks and we're getting overtime, and you got legislators here trying to trip over themselves to see what more they can give, even though the people of Guam may not have the financial capability or the current economic situation outside of these federal funds cannot sustain it. So I'm just bringing it up simply because these complaints have been made, and I want to, just formally ask you publicly with regards to your response to those allegations.
I appreciate
And I
that.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you,
you very
Senator.
much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all of you for, you gave pretty much a very comprehensive presentation. I do want to add one thing. I appreciate the fact that you were mindful in your budget in terms of the amount that you're asking this year. I understand there's always going to be needs. And of course, just by the natural course of personnel, you have increases in insurance and other things that are going to increase your bottom line, even if you didn't increase your personnel.
Right.
I'm glad you're mindful of that, because some agencies, we all think we're in the times of plenty, and I am very fearful with the upcoming fiscal year and the year after, whether our economy is going to be able to generate enough revenue to cover the cost of government. So I appreciate the fact that you're mindful of that in the presentation of your budget for this fiscal
We
year.
work at it every day, Senator. Thank you. I
so
appreciate
much.
that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Chief, I only have one simple question, and then I'm going to go ahead and close this up and adjourn this budget hearing. If you were given sufficient manpower for GFD, would you resort or consider resorting to an 8-hour schedule? It would definitely reduce overtime by 80%. And how realistic can that be? Just something to think about. If you want to answer it, I'd appreciate it. I've been getting texts from former firefighters, GovGuam employees, and in general. I just wanted to ask that question. And it's basically going to shift your 24 hours to 8 hours or 4 shifts. If you're given all the people you needed to meet that requirement, because it will reduce your overtime by 80%. I know that, the cost. So
Right.
I just wanted you to...
Definitely always something that we would take into consideration. It's not like we have not looked at the different models that are out there, but at the end of the day, cost efficiency actually resides with this particular scheduling that we utilize. Because if you want to go to 8-hour shifts, that means we would have to fire. So what we're asking for is to be able to manage the 24-hour shift. If we were to go to 8-hour shifts, we would have to kind of double that request, because I would need 4 personnel in the fire truck for 3 different shifts to cover the 24-hour period.
Provide that report to us, so my colleagues, and when the people of Guam ask that question, I can say, here's the reason why.
I'll be happy to share that with you.
All
sir.
right, thank you, Chief.
Thank
That
you.
being said, this will conclude the budget hearing on the Guam Fire Department. The committee will continue to receive testimony. Please address your written testimony to the Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriation, and Housing, and submit it via email to Senator Joe S. Agustin at gmail.com, or to my office located at Rand Care Building, 2nd floor, Suite 3, 761 Marine Corps Drive, Timoning, Guam. Sizuz Masi for your attendance and participating in today's hearing, Chief and the fire chiefs. Excuse me, and for those at home, thank you for watching. The budget hearing on Bill 55-36 COR relative to the Guam Fire Department is now adjourned. It is now 11:03. Thank you, Chief and Fire Chiefs. Have a nice day and be safe.